Artlist.io.
Check, you can tell me none. Boss mode in effect, and my money long. If you ain't talking money, don't talk to me. I'll be over here.
Music.
Hello, welcome to episode 21 of Paranormal Addicts podcast. Our guest today is Sophia. So, Sophia, introduce yourself to everybody.
Hey, everyone.
We'll get started.
I'm Sophia Temperilli. Some of you may know me as the ghost host on liveparanormal.com. I've been a radio host since I was 12 years old, and I have been a paranormal investigator since I was 8 years old. I basically, started really young, lived in a haunted house, and started my radio show really young. And I'm still doing my radio show 13 years later, and still love the paranormal as much as the day I started.
That's good. Okay, like I said, we'll start out with the easy icebreaker questions. The first one is, what's the favorite location that you've investigated, and what is your bucket list location?
I would say my favorite location that I've investigated so far is probably the Glen Tavern Inn in Santa Paula, California, because I really love locations that you can't just see. I live in the city, so the locations that I can't see just walking down the block. And the Glen Tavern Inn is really kind of out of place in Santa Paula, California. And I had kind of one of the strangest paranormal experiences I've ever had there. So definitely that is my favorite so far. And my bucket list location, I mean, there's so many incredible places out there. Right now, probably like Poveglia Island in Italy, or Alcatraz, because my parents got to spend the night there when I was like 10 and they didn't take me. So I've still never been.
Yeah, Alcatraz is actually one of mine. My other one I'm going to do next year is actually Pinehurst, which is one that I've been investigating since 1992. So you think that's a place I would have been, but I haven't. But I'm going in 2025. So, all right, next icebreaker question is, what is your go-to piece of equipment? And you can't say yourself. We all know that we're the best piece of equipment. So what's the best piece of equipment that you had to buy? How's that? Is that a better way to put it?
Well, this is not a piece of equipment that I purchased, but I for a really long time was using the Ghost Radar app on my phone, and I know a lot of people are kind of unsure of them, but I really have caught some pretty incredible responses on there. But I recently purchased an Ovilus. I haven't used it yet, but it's similar to a Ghost Radar, so I would say that that's probably my favorite piece, because I really like when you're investigating being able to get those in the moment responses. I mean, EVPs are obviously incredible, being able to capture real voices, but I think one of the hardest things is not knowing what's being said in the moment, so not being able to have that back and forth dialogue. So for me, I like equipment that you can really communicate with the spirit in that very second.
So, I mean, that's one of the questions we usually tackle. So since you kind of mentioned anyway, we'll go ahead and start with that. Let's talk about phone apps. So, there's a lot of people that's against phone apps. There's a lot of people that's whatever. So this is my take. I'll tell you what my take is, and then you can tell you what you think. So my thing is, first of all, there's no right way or wrong way to investigate. Everybody has their own way, and you can never question anybody's experience. It's their experience. If they say they had an experience, you have to take it. So let's say that first. And then now, in particular with apps, the thing is, I'm never going to trust a phone app when it comes to EMF reading, because the phone gives off a high EMF on its own. So, it's kind of hard. So, but taking the EMF out of the equation, I have several people on my team that trust the apps, and I've seen them give good results. And what people have to realize is your phone nowadays is basically just a mini computer. So why couldn't it be useful? But I take apps like I do, any piece of equipment. It don't make any difference if it's an novelist or a voice recorder or anything. You have to test the equipment, find out what the false positives are, the positives, all that stuff before I test every piece of equipment I have, every piece of equipment my team has. We use it for 3 investigations before we actually consider it a useful tool. So yeah. So that's my take. What's your take, Sophia?
Well, in regards to like EMF detectors on an app, I personally haven't tried them and I haven't seen them used in person, so I can't really speak to that. The only app I've really used is the Ghost Radar app, and like I said, I've gotten some pretty great responses on them. So for me, I believe in them. I mean, it's always great to have like solid paranormal equipment, but sometimes people can't afford them or just ease of use. So for me, I mean, minus the really annoying ads, the Ghost Radar has worked pretty well. For example, I was not even investigating. I was just hanging out with a friend at the David Oman house, which is about 500 feet, I believe, from where the Manson murders took place. And I had my phone on doing the Ghost Radar app, and I actually got the word pig on the phone, which for those who don't know is actually what the Manson family wrote in blood on the walls. And we weren't asking questions, anything. And I had never gotten that word on the app before, and I haven't gotten it since. So for me, it was kind of really good confirmation that the app worked, at least in that situation, because that is so specific to the location and the environment.
So I know, Chris, you use Spirit Talker, right, Chris?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Chris uses Spirit Talker, and I've seen other people use Spirit Talker, and I've seen them give good results. I have no issue with that app. Would I put it in the same category as like an Ovilus? Probably not. But it also didn't cost $800. I personally do not have Ovilus. I do have a Paratech EM5, which is the same technology. Which I actually like the Paratech better because it has 12 settings instead of just one basic setting. It has 12 settings, and when it comes time to update it, I just plug it into my computer like a phone instead of having to spend another $800. I did spend $400, but $400 is a lot better than $800. But anyway, that's my thing. And I think the biggest thing comes with people when with the apps. I think it goes back to like the SLS technology when it first came out, because especially on the phone app, it's so sensitive it picks up everything. So I see that. I'm not. I've seen SLS produce good results, and I've seen it produce. I've actually debunked a lot more SLS than I've used as evidence, if that makes sense. So it's just about knowing your equipment is really what it's about. So that's my rant on apps. So okay.
I mean, it definitely depends on the equipment too, because I feel like one of the hardest things in the paranormal is with technology. I mean, I'm not one of those people that can build it, so I don't understand the fundamental workings of a lot of the equipment, but it's hard to know because it's really trial and error and building a piece of equipment and testing it, and when you have such a small community like the paranormal, which I mean is growing, but a lot of people can't afford the equipment. It's really a very long kind of beta test model for a lot of the equipment to refine it and hone it and make it work better or see if it works at all.
Right. And that's the thing. When somebody joins my team is Ken 10 Paranormal, and we're a relatively large team. We got 15 members, so that's a relatively large paranormal team. But when somebody joins my team, it's not just like you come up to me and say, "Hey, I want to join Ken 10 Paranormal." We actually have a procedure. You actually have to meet with me and at least one of my team leads, and then we have an orientation you got to go through, and then you got a training period. But one thing I tell all my new people, all my trainees, is that don't go out and just buy an Ovilus or SLS, because that's a lot of money. I have it you can use as long as you don't break it, because if you break it, you're buying it. But
Yeah.
I do tell everybody to get a voice recorder, and I tell everybody to get a flashlight. So we got our first question from the Peanut Gallery. So Damien asks, with you being female, do you get more attention from male spirits?
Hi, Damien. So that's a great question. It definitely depends on the location. As I mentioned earlier on in the show, I did live in a haunted house, and that ghost was solely focused on women. If a man walked into that home, he was not going to feel anything. He was not going to experience anything. So yes and no. I mean, it really depends on the spirit, like any person, who they're drawn to and such. We did get some, I guess, unusual responses when I was filming with the Dark Zone on the Queen Mary. They were, I guess, sort of asking if the ghosts preferred talking to me. And so, yeah, in certain situations, I do get more attention from ghosts, but it really depends on the spirit itself and the location. Just as it would be the same for, I think, some women ghosts too. The men would get more attention than the females. So it's a really great question, and yes, I have.
The Queen Mary.
I can see that.
The Queen Mary location is really good.
Yeah, it was the first place I ever investigated when I was 8, and it's such an incredible location, very close to home, and it's really been, I think, probably the biggest location. Inside? Yeah, it is. I mean, it's really has so much Art Deco in it, from the floors to the walls, that it really is a piece of art in it of itself. Recently, they just went to restoring it, so I haven't been back since the restoration, but it's really just an incredible ship to see in person.
And they're asking you if the ghosts prefer talking to you, kind of makes sense, because obviously back then all the crew would have been male. So you might have been the first female they had seen in a while. So here's my male versus female story. I know Chris has said this before, and Damien's probably heard it too, but that's okay. I'm going to tell it again anyway. We went to this location last year. It's in it's called the Anderson Hotel. It actually got shut down for 4 years for investigations because of how violently haunted it is. Mm-hmm. And we were the second team to get to investigate it last year. So we go there, and it's me and my 3 team leads. That was that, and Haley. So it's me, my 3 team leads, and Haley. So we're all experienced investigators except for Haley. She was still new at the time. So we get there, and one thing you have to understand, it's called the Anderson Hotel, but it's a transit hotel, is what it is. Mm-hmm. So we're not talking about the Hilton, it's a transit hotel. So, and they asked for it to be like this, violently haunted, because when you go in there, there's 2 rooms that still have the bloodstained mattresses in. There's one, where the people committed suicide. There's one room that has a bloodstained bathtub where they committed suicide. Mm-hmm. There's the liquor bottles where the guy drunk himself to the point where he hung himself in the closet. So you get the picture. So yeah, the two most famous rooms, if that's the word you want to use, famous rooms, or one with this 19-year-old girl. I mean, she's 19, she's still a girl. Mm-hmm. She came all the way from Michigan to this little town in Kentucky. She was looking for answers. Nobody really knows her story. They do know that it was a verified suicide, because police reports, coroner reports, newspaper reports. So they know she committed suicide there, but they don't know why she came to Lawrenceburg, which is the town. Well, while she was there, she took crayons and she drew little pictures and wrote Bible verses and hung them all over the room. And they're still hanging on the wall. And then she cut her wrist to commit suicide. Her mattress is still there, bloodstained.
Oh wow!
And so that's one of the most popular rooms. The other one is this room they call the Blue Room. Mm-hmm. This guy lived there. He lived in the hotel. He was alcoholic. He was just asked to begin with, but he was alcoholic, mm-hmm. and he ran prostitutes in and out of there. And he drank himself to the point that he hung himself in the closet. Well, all of his liquor bottles are still there, and sometimes when teams come and investigate, they bring him another bottle of liquor. We didn't do that because that's provoking. We don't provoke. So anyway, we get there, we start doing stuff, and the girls' room, she responded better to the females. so we let the females go there, and only thing we could piece together in theory, by theory, is her heart got broke or something, and that's why she came 500 miles away. Why she came there, we don't know. So, but that's the conversation that the girls had with her, or the voice recorder, and everything. That's all we can get together. That's all that makes sense. But anyway, so me and Dennis, we go to the we're in the blue room. Well, the first thing I decided to do, being me, is I'm a clairvoyant, or whatever term you want to use. The first thing I decided to do is to go into the closet where the guy committed suicide. And as soon as I stepped into the closet, all my energy got zapped, and I hit the ground. I mean, so we're in there. And what we do is we do hour rotations, So 1 hour, me and Dennis was in that room. We got time to switch, and I radioed back to the girls. I was like, I have to tell you, I know you're coming to the blue room next, but this spirit doesn't like females. I don't know what's going to happen, but I mean, he's made it clear that he does not like females. So we switched anyway, and we go to the suicide room. When they get there, to try to get the conversation started, knowing the guy ran prostitutes in and out. At that time, Haley was she was only 19, and she was a cute girl. So she's like, "Hey, I'm 19 and cute. Can I get a job?" And we quote a Class A EVP. I still have it. Class A EVP. It says $50 and free room.
Oh my gosh,
Hey,
that's
Ken,
incredible.
the cult leaders here.
Yep, I just threw him up there. What's up, Rob? So anyway, so they keep going on, and while they're going on, the spirit actually grabbed Tiff by her lady parts. That's the nicest way. I mean, he actually grabbed her. So yeah, so that was definitely female oriented. So yeah, but at that point, I ended the investigation because it was a safety issue. So yeah. Sometimes locations and stuff, females get different responses than males will, because obviously he didn't grab me. So yeah. So long story short. So next question. Moving on. Let's see. Damien's got another one, I think. This is a long one. I got to read it. So, how did you ascertain that you would experience in a haunted house? So yeah. So he wants to know, you grew up in a haunted house. How did you determine it was really haunted and not just your imagination as a kid?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Well, there's a few things. I had started in the paranormal when I was 8. I had lived in this house my whole life, but we didn't realize that there was activity until I was 9. I was the first one to experience activity in the house, but I had already been a paranormal investigator at this point in time, so I really knew the difference. And I was never a kid with like a super wild imagination. I didn't have imaginary friends or any of that, so that's not really typical of something I would have done as a child. What had started in the house was I felt like I was being watched everywhere. It felt like the ceiling, the walls, everything was covered with eyes, and I felt really uncomfortable in my parents' room because of that. And one day I went into my parents' room and I saw a man standing in my parents' closet, and obviously I knew this wasn't a real person. I didn't see him like I was seeing a real person. And yeah, I just went up to my parents and I said, "Hey, there's a man in your closet." And my dad had already written a book for a psychic in the field. Like I said, we were already in the paranormal at this time. A psychic named Peter James. And he thought it was my imagination. He thought, is there any coincidence I wrote a book for a psychic and now you're seeing ghosts in our house? My mom has never been one to tell me I'm wrong. She's always wanted to support me, so she said okay. She didn't know what to say, really. And one day my mom was putting makeup on in her vanity area of her bedroom, and there was 3 knocks from the inside of her closet door. So they grabbed an EVP recorder and they caught voices, really, really clear voices. And from that point on, my parents knew that I was telling the truth and our house was haunted. And there was tons of other experiences after that. Some things that happened even before we realized the house was haunted, that in hindsight, we look back and go, okay, yeah, it was haunted. My dog could see the ghost. She would stand in the hallway violently barking where I would also see him. I had diamond doves in my bedroom and they would bounce off the cage in fear whenever he was around. So there was a lot of things that gave confirmation after my initial sighting of the ghost. But yeah, to the point of your question, I did have parents that were supportive. We all three had been in the paranormal. However, my dad was more skeptical and did think it was an imaginary friend. And he loves when I bring that up. I'm like, Dad, it's the truth, okay? So yeah, I mean, there was a lot of things after that point, and the activity really picked up from there. And it was really kind of torture for me from that point on, because the ghost was focused on me and females. It was basically like my own live-in stalker, which was horrifying at any point in time, but especially as a 9-year-old, it's scary to have a grown man watching you constantly at any point of the day. And yeah, so that's basically how I knew. It started out as just a feeling, then became me seeing him, and then it became really just active at any point in time. EVPs, the dog, my mom would walk in and out of cold spots. It was everything.
Have you ever had banging in the house?
Yeah, we did. So besides the ghost knocking in the closet, my dad's like an old 80s metal drummer with like a massive drum set, one that like shouldn't even probably fit in your house. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, he would play the drums, and one time he was playing the drums extremely loud with his friend who's a guitarist, so really, really loud. And there was a huge bang on the side of our like house, the wall, and there was no way that was caused by anything. And multiple people in our house heard it. My uncle was over, my mom's friend, and everyone heard it over this extremely loud music. So there was banging besides the closet. I think that was the only time. But my mom had a piece of metal thrown at her back, stuff like that.
Do you think there's a haunted object in the house?
I'm not sure. We did have a psychic say that they felt there was something buried under the floorboards. But obviously we're not going to rip up our floor to go look. And so, I mean, there was, some people that felt that there was something in the house. I couldn't tell you if that was true or not. Personally, I don't think there was a haunted object, whether it was related to the ghost that was there and what caused him to be there. I'm not sure. My dad had actually grown up in the home when he was a child. He's adopted, and his adoptive father was a paranoid schizophrenic. So he had to move out at the age of 9. And then my grandfather became a ward of the county, and LA County didn't take good care of their wards at that time. So he died in the house. He was not the ghost that haunted it, but he died alone in the home with no electricity, no heating, nothing. And really anyone could have broken into the house and done whatever during that a pretty significant period of time with there being no records. So to actually pinpoint what caused it, it's pretty hard to say whether it was something that was buried there or if it was someone that died there. I don't know.
So anyway, we got a question for Rob I'm going to get to in just a second. He said I'm speed reading because I do speed read. So I'll pop the questions up and I'll read it, so I'll take it down because I am a speed reader. Chris will tell you that. He'll send me these great big long newspaper articles and I'll read them in like 2 seconds. He's like, did you read that? I'm like, but a point I was going to get to was, you talk about kids and imaginary friends and dogs and cats. I think all of us have clairvoyance, whatever term you want to use, as a kid, and dogs and cats definitely have it. And for some reason, as we grow up, I don't know if it's because we're told not to believe or whatever, a lot of people lose that. Obviously, I didn't, but I'm like you. I didn't grow up in a haunted house, but I don't remember a time when I did not speak to spirits. It used to scare me. I mean, my experience, I've shared it before. Chris is probably tired of hearing it, but my experience that turned me into an investigator is when I was like 10. I had a great aunt. She was more like a grandmother to me because she was my grandmother's sister. And every time we went out to eat, shopping or whatever, she went with us. Anyway, she died, and she came to me. She was at the hospital, and she came to me at the house and told me she had passed. And we carried on this conversation. Wow. And at that point, I decided I needed to either learn how to use my gift or be afraid of my life. And obviously, I mean, you can look at me and tell me I'm not somebody that's afraid of much. So I started learning how to use it. I remember I was at the hospital with my grandfather, my pampa is what I called him, my dad's dad, when he was passing away, and I had a complete stranger walk up to me. I was probably 12 at this time. Walk up to me and he was like, "You can speak to the dead, can't you?" I was like, so that was kind of like a what? So anyway, so yeah, so Rob's question is, here, I'll put it up slowly for you, Rob. Are you ready? Do you think parental influences helped you remain open to the other side?
I mean, it really was a family affair, but my family has always been kind of strange. So I think it's really something I grew up with. My favorite show when I was younger was Scooby-Doo. One of my favorite movies when I was little was Sleepy Hollow, which I think is just creepy for a toddler to like, but I don't know, I guess I was a creepy toddler. And so I mean, yes and no. I think it was kind of just like ingrained in me from a young age through, my parents liking creepy stuff, but also I think it's kind of nature versus nurture. Like I said, my dad's adopted and we recently found his birth father. Like I said earlier, my dad's a drummer. Well, it turns out his dad was a drummer and he wasn't raised by his dad. So you have a little bit of, yes, you have the influence by your parents, but there's also just a part of your genetics that I think you get from your parents that is always with you, whether you were raised by them or not. And I think that's kind of what the paranormal is for me.
Right. And I'm glad to see, like some families out there, in some areas. I mean, it helps that actually accepts the paranormal. It's more acceptable now thanks to the para pop culture. That's my word. You can use it. Thanks to the para pop culture. But growing up, I live in not only the Bible Belt. I live at the heart of the Bible Belt. So so we literally have a church in every corner. All that stuff. And growing up, I always got, when people found out I was a paranormal investigator, because I went on my first, actual investigating when I was 12 with my best friend Tracy. He's not with us anymore, sadly. But when everybody else was out trick or treating, we went we investigated a real haunted house in Paducah. So when people found out that I was a paranormal investigator, I always got, "Oh, you must worship the devil." So
Yeah.
And like when I would check out like every book I could on parapsychology, ghost hunting, everything. And I actually got called down to the library for that. I mean, to the principal's office for that. So yeah, it's changed a lot. But so
Yeah.
Damien wants to know: did the spirit stay with the house when you moved out, or do you feel it's still there?
Yeah, so I also saw another part to Damien's question as well. To your former one, about it going with me if I went to like a store or sleepovers and stuff, he was pretty much confined to the house itself. You never really saw him outside or anything. I only saw him outside of the house once, and that was still on the property. He was out front. And that was a night we had a bunch of psychics over, so I don't think that was any coincidence. I think he was probably pretty angry. But he really did stay to the confines of the property, and luckily when I moved out, he stayed there too. I can honestly say you could not pay me enough to go back there. The trauma is always with me, and that's fun. So part of the haunting did come with me in the form of PTSD, but the spirit itself did stay there, and I could not be happier because I do feel, and I'm sorry for the people that do move out of haunted homes and have it follow them. I couldn't even imagine that.
It's like stepping on gum, basically.
Yeah, follows you wherever, and I'm one of the fortunate ones that had it stay.
Well, that all comes down to, at least in my opinion, and I understand there's no such thing as experts in this field, but I do have a few years behind me, and in a lot of investigations, more than I've lost count. So it's all about what the spirit is attached to. Was it attached to the house? Is it attached to an object? And that's Chris hinted at it earlier, and we'll get to that. We'll tackle that subject here in a minute. What's keeping that spirit earthbound?
Yeah.
Spirits can leave whenever they want to. So whatever's keeping it earthbound. So are they attached to the location? Are they attached to you? Are they attached to whatever? So yeah. So next question is, we've already kind of talked about it, but we'll go more in depth on it. First of all, since Rob's on, Rob, can we all get haunted tattoos so we can be part of the cult? Anyway, so the next question is haunted objects.
Mhm.
Yeah, what's your opinion on it? Whether it's a haunted doll, whether it's a haunted brick, whatever,
Yeah.
Do you feel that an object can be? I don't like using the word haunted because everybody, when you say haunted, everybody looks at it as a negative thing, and just because there's activity doesn't mean necessarily it's bad. It's just active.
Mhm.
So anyway, how do you feel about possess? No, I don't like that word either. How do you feel about haunted objects?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that there are haunted objects. What the genesis of the haunting is, it's hard to say, whether it's someone's favorite object, residual energy, like a mirror, someone looking into it every day. It's really hard to say kind of where that origin may be of the haunting. I particularly don't like old mirrors and dolls. I don't know, they creep me out. So I don't know if that's like a paranormal sensitive thing, but I mean, dolls can be kind of creepy in general, so I don't even know if that's a haunted thing or them just being creepy. But I definitely think there's something to it. I definitely believe that objects can be haunted, but why and what it is, it's hard to say. I mean, it's one of those things where a lot of people have sentimental attachments to objects, whether it's something they got from a loved one that means a lot to them. Like I said, residual energy, someone looking into a mirror every day. I don't see that there's any reason why something that's used all the time can't have a mark left on it the same way that a location can.
Especially if it's especially like you said, especially if it's residual. If it's just residual, why wouldn't it be that mirror they looked at every day, or that shirt, or their favorite shirt, or their pillow? So yeah, and residual is your most common activity, your most cunning haunted. So yeah, so here's my story. Here's my doll story. If anybody cares, I'm going to tell it anyway. So we might as well here. It's my podcast. So there's a location that we investigate quite a bit up in Missouri, and it's a bed and breakfast. It's a haunted bed and breakfast. So it already had activity. The activity that is involved there was an abusive father who beat, and the father and the son, both their spirits are there. So anyway, so it's already got activity. Well, this other team that I'm not going to mention, because they are good friends of mine still, even though this wasn't the smartest decision, they decided to travel from Missouri to New York to get a haunted doll to bring back to this location that's already haunted. So so we get there, and we start. We break into teams, but nobody on my team would go into the room with the doll. So I ended up doing a solo session with the doll. So we're there, and one of the pieces of equipment I got is I got a piece of equipment that measures our footsteps, vibrations on the footsteps. I've only seen it go off like once in 20 years. So geophone, that's what it's called. I went blank for a minute. I have a geophone. They don't even make them anymore. But anyway, so I still got one. And it was actually a gift to me from another team. So that when we investigated in another location, they're like, "Hey, do you got geophone?" I'm like, "No." They're like, "Well, now you got one." So anyway, so I set it. We'll set up. It's not even really a room. It's like a hallway, like a entranceway, And there's like an antique piano here, and there's a rocking chair here with this haunted doll here. And so I set my REM pod on the piano, and I set my geophone on the ground next to the door, and I'm doing an EVP session with with my voice recorder and my Paratech. So we're there, and the rest of the team's in the living room because I want nothing to do with this. So we're going along, blah blah blah, and so one of the other I've probably only got 5 Class A voice, EVPs in my thing, but this was like the second one I ever got, and Class A EVP, it said, "I'm behind you."
Oh wow!
But for whatever,
That's creepy.
so and right when it said "I'm behind you," the geophone and the REM pod start going off simultaneously. And like I said, I've never seen the geophone go off. This is the first time I had ever seen it go off. And it starts going off. But like I said, my team's in the living room. They don't even know what's going on with me. But one of my team members decides to take a picture behind me. So she snaps a picture. And then when we get ready to change, rotate, she shows me, she's like, I took this. And she showed me the picture. And you can see like a shadow behind me on the door. Like a full body shadow. Right when it said I'm behind you. So that's just like one of those, you can't dismiss it. So we got another question for Rob here. I'm going to do it very slowly, Rob. I'm going to leave it up. Are you ready? So thoughts on the potential that the thought of attention. Man, okay, this is going back to manifest activity. So what's your thought, Sophia?
Yeah, so I mean, I think there's definitely like kind of two answers to this question. I mean, I know that I've talked to a lot of psychics, and a lot of them believe that there can be activity anywhere. And I think that comes down to the fact that every location, no matter if it's a brand new building or not, the land has history. Where I live used to be farmland, and before that, it used to be part of Mexico. And so every piece of property or land has some sort of energy that's attached to it. And if you are, believing something is haunted enough to manifest activity, there's the theory, I guess, that you are just, maybe allowing the spirits who are there and possibly dormant to feel that they are now able to communicate. With my haunted house, like I said, I had lived there since the day I was born. My dad had lived there as a child. No one knew it was haunted. And I think it comes down to the fact that the spirit probably knew that I was someone that could see it. And that's why the activity ramped up. And then there's also the second theory where, it's not haunted and nothing's coming to life, but you have a self-fulfilling prophecy or a confirmation bias, and people want to believe something so much they see signs and things that aren't there. And so it's really the difference between, possibly allowing a spirit who may not have felt that they had someone they could communicate with before or listen, and then also people that are seeing something that's not there, almost like pareidolia.
So yeah, I mean, I pretty well agree with everything you just said. One of my good friends in this field is Gavin Kelly. I don't know if you know Gavin, but he's on Paraflex and all that stuff. But so anyway, me and Gavin actually are from the same hometown, graduated from the same high school, all that stuff. So we go back a ways. So and his second book just got released, and that's actually what it's about. It's about media and the pop culture and all that stuff, making people believe something's there when it's not necessarily there. So Damien's got another question. I think I'm just going to put Damien and Rob on the screen and let them take over the show. Here's Damien's next question. Do you think the spirit attaches itself to the first item it finds, or does it get stalked by other means? Do you feel it's the closest to the body since it can't take over a living vessel? So my take is if it's attached to an object, it's something that it was attached to living. So it's not just going to float around and be like, oh, there's a pillow, I'm attached to it. If it's going to be like, oh, there's my favorite shirt, I'm attached. There's my favorite toy. At least that's how I feel. What you think?
Well, first off, I want to thank Damien and Rob both for their questions in the chat. I appreciate it. And secondly, I really don't know. I'm not sure what the genesis would be for haunted objects. Like I said, I mean, trying, and I talked about this on a different show recently, but trying to figure out kind of what would be an intelligent haunting or what's residual haunting it's a little bit hard, because residual, is repetitive behavior that's imprinted on a location, but you would really have to do those tests to figure out if you're getting the same responses over and over and over again. And it would be the same with a haunted object. Is this just imprinted from daily use and the energy attached to it, or is it something intelligent? And trying to figure out what it is would take a lot of study over time, and I personally don't think that they probably attach themselves to the first object they find, because like you would have a haunted fork probably, which is gross, but like
A haunted roll of toilet paper.
yeah, like it's I would that's creepy. I mean, I wouldn't want that, but it's one of those things like I'm sure that there's probably more thought that they put into it, but then again, I have no idea. I feel like a lot of questions in the paranormal is, you know, we won't find out until we're there ourselves, but I'm sure that there's probably a bigger process to it than attaching, because there would be a haunted Xbox if it was me. I would just attach myself to an Xbox.
So yeah, so Damien says he wants a haunted pillow. Rob says he's got one. I do not have a haunted pillow. I do have a haunted brick. I got a brick from it was from a haunted Joe.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't steal the brick. I actually got it by legal means. You know, I actually won it at auction. But the brick that I got was actually part of the jeweler's house. And for whatever reason, there's energy there. So anyway, so we've talked about residual. Let's just discuss different kinds of hauntings. And you throw out your opinions on that, and I'll probably throw my opinion out on that because it is my show. So let's start with residual. Do you believe in residual haunting? What's your definition of residual haunting? Do you agree that that's probably the most common, like they say? Residual haunting. Go.
Yeah, so I do believe in residual hauntings. I feel like in the paranormal it's kind of hard to throw every theory out because, you know, there's so many unanswered questions, and there always will be. But I believe, you know, places like Gettysburg and stuff, I feel like are probably maybe some of the biggest examples of residual hauntings because, you know, people still hear gunfire going off and stuff. And I mean, there could be intelligent hauntings still thinking they're fighting the war, but that to me feels a little bit more residual, or a stuck spirit than something intelligent enough to know that, hey, I'm dead. I can move on or at least do something else. So I do believe in residual haunting. I don't know that it's at every location. I feel like something really impactful would have to take place, like the Battle of Gettysburg, to really leave that strong imprint. But like I said, I mean, to kind of figure out and narrow down if it's residual or not, you would really have to do a lot of study over time to see if you're getting the same responses at this particular time or this particular day, or this happened and then this followed. So it would be really hard to kind of pinpoint what is, you know, just a ghost walking through their house because it's their house and that's what they did every day, or, you know, them just feeling like going, oh, hey, I'm going to go look out this window and now I'm going to go back to my living room. That can still be an intelligent haunting. So it's kind of hard to figure out.
So my two best stories are residual hauntings. One, we have this location that we go to we go to twice a year, but we do it every National Ghost Hunting Day, which, you know, is the first Saturday of September. So we go there, but it was the African American hotel during segregation. I'm being politically correct. So, but all the famous people stay there. All the Negro League baseball players, the Harlem Globetrotters, all the black. So anyway, so there's always been activity there. I don't know if you know Damian Christie. He's an investigator for Tennessee. He actually considers it like the third most active location he's ever been to. So anyway, but the most famous ghost, I guess, is a residual that they figure is the lady that used to own it. At 11:01 p.m., she just walks down the stairs. That's all she does. Just walks down the stairs. And like I said, I've investigated this a lot of times. But the last time I investigated, we had a film crew from Belmont University with us, and we was actually able to catch it on film. So that's like my best residual story. So, all right, let's move on to intelligent hauntings. What do you consider an intelligent haunting? Do you believe in intelligent hauntings? How common do you think they are?
Yeah, so
questions in there?
yeah, I definitely believe in intelligent hauntings. And one thing I will say is everyone's take in the chat room, I feel like is along the same lines and definitely accurate. I think one example that's a good example. I don't know the episode title, but I recently watched a show on Netflix called Dead Boy Detectives, and they had an episode where they were trying to help the ghost move on of a murdered family, and the way that it kind of replayed in a loop, I would say it's probably the best example I've seen, at least media wise, of like a residual haunting. But like everyone said, it's something tragic, and they either can't accept it. It's kind of hard to say what it is, but I feel like it's along the same lines, and everyone is residual haunting. It's residual haunting, but intelligent hauntings, I do believe in them. I've had my own experiences with them, and I believe they're probably, even though it's hard to capture like EVPs or intelligent hauntings and stuff, I think it's probably the most common, because interacting with a residual haunting, besides like maybe hearing it or seeing something, I think would be much harder to like communicate on an Ovilus or something, because that's back and forth dialogue, and you likely wouldn't get that with the loop of a residual haunting. So I think in terms of what investigators are actually speaking to, it's more likely than not a intelligent haunting. And I had that, like I said, in my haunted house. The first EVP we caught was in my mom's vanity after the 3 knocks on the closet door. And she had this light sitting on this ottoman in her vanity that we didn't know how to install. And so my mom wasn't asking questions. She was just talking to my cousin. And there was literally a voice on the recorder that said, "I will help you put these lights up." And that's very key specific to what's happening in the location. This wasn't an old light. This wasn't something that had been there forever. It had only been there like a year and a half or something. And my parents didn't know how to install it. Again, sounds like a very helpful ghost. He wasn't. He was a creep. But, that's a very intelligent response to analyze the surroundings, say something very specific and direct to it. So I definitely believe in them, and I have definitely had my own experiences with them.
Yeah, so, I mean, I never heard that before about, and it's a good point. I'm actually going to go with this. I'm going to study this further after hearing you say it about, most people just, for whatever reason, just assume that residual is the most common. But like you said, intelligence almost has to be, because you can't really interact with residual. That's just somebody walking down or a sound. So, yeah, so being able to communicate, it has to be somewhat intelligent. So that's a new way of looking at it to me, and I have to agree with that. I'm actually going to start studying from that standpoint. One of my best intelligent responses I ever got, we was investigating this place it's called Hotel California. But so quick background on it. There's a place in Kentucky and Tennessee. It's called the LBL. It was during when the president was having projects just to put people to work, and they were building highways and stuff. They decided to build 2 lakes and move and destroy 2 whole cities. And so you got the LBL, which is Kentucky Lake and Berkeley Lake. But then you have what used to be cities. Matter of fact, Kentucky Lake used to be a cemetery, and they didn't even move the bodies. They just put the lake over and it's the biggest man-made lake in the world. So anyway, so one of the houses that they made move was this real nice house. It was the vacation home for a guy that was a riverboat captain. So anyway, it became known as Hotel California. So that's where everybody goes, and parties and stuff, So I've been there all my life as a kid, partying, all that stuff. But everybody always said there was never much activity there. Well, there was never much activity there because people didn't have the equipment and didn't know what they were doing. So me and my team went there, and I was talking to them. Well, Jill, my team lead, and Steph, they went on upstairs, and I was still downstairs walking around talking to him. I was having good interaction back and forth. Well, finally, I asked if I could go upstairs, and it told me no. And then I was like, "Is it okay for us to be here?" And it's like I want you to leave. And then I was like, "Why do you want us to leave?" I was like, "Why do you want us to leave?" I was like, "I'm just here to talk to you, find out answers." I was like, "I'm not here to people throw trash." So I was like, "I'm not here to destroy the property like other people. I'm just here to find." And my exact response was, word for word, was, "I'm afraid it's too late."
Yeah.
So I was like, so yeah, intelligent. So here's everybody's favorite one, especially if you're a YouTuber. How do you feel about demonic hauntings?
Yeah, I really don't know. I even though I'm in the paranormal personally, like I'm not the type of person where I'm ever I at least at this point in my life, I'm not gonna go to like Goatman Bridge or any place like that that has dark hauntings like that. After living in a haunted house, there's definitely certain things I will do my best not to interact with or touch. So speaking to demonic hauntings, I personally haven't experienced them, and I don't feel I have probably enough knowledge to speak on them accurately, since that's not really an area I have any interest delving into. Like,
Don't you know the only thing you gotta do is it's a demon and you get more likes on your Facebook. That's how that works.
yeah, I mean,
Here's my take on demonic hauntings. So I'm not dismissing demonic hauntings. I'm actually a trained demonologist. I actually went through training from Bishop James Long. So I'm actually trained. But what people have to understand, demonic hauntings are the minority. We're talking about less than 1% ever. Even the Catholic Church, and I'm not Catholic, so I'm also not saying anything bad about Catholics. I'm just saying, but even the Catholic Church, who keeps records of this, only have like 12 true demonic cases in the history of the Catholic Church. So so it's the it's the minority, and so I guess I could run around and scream it's a demonic or to get more followers or whatever, but I'm not going to do that. What people have to understand, there are evil spirits or spirits that are mean or whatever, but just because the spirit's mean or whatever doesn't mean it's a demonic spirit. If the person was a dickhead in life, he's going to be a dickhead as a spirit. I mean, that's
the hard part. I mean,
To be honest, it's hard for me to believe in demonic because I haven't encountered anything that is demonic.
Well, I have a chihuahua, so I feel like I did.
The closest I ever came to
when I was in Fairfield State Hospital, it's actually very, very haunted. And they said there's like spirits that are mean and vicious, and it was
Chris Roberts said he was married to a demon, and he will send you. Robert said he was married to a demon, and he's going to send you her number.
It was Carmelian Insane Place, and there was a patient in there that actually held my hand.
Yeah.
And I felt it. It was cold. I'm like, that's not supposed to be cold. My hand's not supposed to be cold because I know it was holding it. I'm like, okay. Nothing negative.
Yeah,
I've experienced negative. I can't say I've ever experienced. I've never experienced demonic. I mean, I have that training. I consider myself educated. So any training I can have, I try. So I'm like you, Sophia. I want to avoid that as much as possible. But I also think my team we do a lot of residential investigations. So if somebody calls me up and says, come and investigate my house, I can't be, it might be a demon, so I'm not coming. I can't do that. So the only thing I've ever experienced personally that I would say come close to a demonic haunting was when I was living in Indiana. I used to be a pro MMA fighter, so I was living outside Louisville. I was fighting out of Louisville, but I was living on the Indiana side because it's cheaper rent. So, but I was also doing paranormal investigating, of course, because that's my calling. So we got carded by this these in-laws. They wanted us to come and check out this location. What happened was there was a murder-suicide. This guy killed their daughter, him, and their kids, and it had only been like a month. So one thing, the location was still too fresh. We should have waited, but we wanted to help them, so we went. And this is one of those locations. Going to it, you would think it was like a Stephen King movie. It was like, so first thing you did is you went underneath the Crying Baby Bridge in Indiana, the famous Crying Baby Bridge where the mom threw a baby off, supposedly. So you go underneath that. And then when you get underneath that, you come across a cemetery from the 1890s right across from the house. So it's just like so we get there and the house has been knocked down. The neighbors had knocked down the house, because they wanted to get rid of the evil. So we have to crawl through the living room window, which leads us to the basement. And so we get there, and the story is, and we end up being able to verify everything, is it was even in the police reports that the husband he lost his job, blah blah blah, and he started dabbling in black magic and devil worship, and it drove him crazy. And that's what caused. So we get there and we pull up the carpet in the master bedroom, and you still see the blood, but underneath the carpet pad, it's a big pentagram and all that stuff, and there was a lot of evil stuff there. I still won't say it's demonic, but there was a lot of evil. So I want to get back to Damien's question. He had 100 of them, but I think this is an interesting question.
I really want to know why they just leave it there and not cleanse the place before anybody comes back in. Like, like new people come back in when there's there's just evil still there. If you know what I mean, like the pentagram and the blood stain is still there. Why haven't they cleansed it? That's the question. When new people come in, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it comes down to really who owns the location and what their knowledge is of the field, because some people don't believe in it and they just don't care, and so they just move on. So it's one of those things. It depends on who is in charge of the property and if they have belief cleansing will work or not. And like someone said in the comments, me personally, I don't disregard anyone's personal experiences because I'm not them, and I can't say what they did or didn't experience. Just for me, when it comes to demonic or evil stuff, I do my absolute best not to dabble in it, because I'm not going to get in over my head, and I do not want another bad ghost following me. So I don't have probably as good of an answer to some of those questions as someone who is more well-versed in that area.
Well, like you said, you can't ever dismiss anybody's thing. And, I know some people, I know a lot of people who don't even do, a lot of teams don't even do residential investigations anymore because, to be honest, a lot of people, when they call residential, there's nothing there. They just saw taps or whatever. And then one of my good friends from Tennessee, he kind of has the same problem that you could possibly have, Sophia. They're all female team, all females, and I mean they're attractive females. And a lot of times when they used to try to do residential, they get hit on by the people. So she's like, I'm just not going to do it. So yeah, but you can never dismiss anybody's thing. So anyway, let's get to Damien's question because I want to hear everybody's answer. So here's the question: what's the scariest experiment you tried? For example, the human pendulum or sensory depression pool. What's the scariest experiment you've tried on location?
Yeah, so I haven't done too many experiments on location. Like I said, I started when I was 8. I'm 25 now, so I have been doing it a really long time, but there are a lot of things I haven't done paranormal-wise just because I did start so young. Probably haven't investigated as many locations as some people who've been in the field the same amount of time as me because I was in school, literally elementary school, middle school, high school. So I had kind of normal life going on, very much adjacent to the paranormal. In terms of experiments, I've done the SC session. I don't really get anything. I've been under once, and I've been the person asking the questions once. When I'm under, I don't really get anything. I think I'm an overthinker, so I don't think that really helps let me immerse myself in the experiment. But when I was the one asking the questions, I would definitely say that was the scariest experiment because it really did felt like Clarice Starling talking to Hannibal Lecter. I mean, the type of responses we were getting was very unnerving, and I ended the session when the person I was talking to literally said smile, which was just a really creepy thing to say in that moment, given the circumstances. So I ended the session at that point. So that was definitely the scariest for me just because it was very unnerving in the moment with just the back and forth. But I haven't done like tons of experiments given just I've been doing it, like I said, I've been doing it a really long time, but I started really young, and typically 8-year-olds aren't doing experiments like that.
Well, you would think so, but here's my experience. Here's my experience, and Damien's heard this a couple weeks ago. So when I was 14, of course I was already investigated this time, whatever. So my youth leader's daughter, adopted daughter, foster daughter, whatever she was. Anyway, she was 17 and she was hot. Like a lot. Think about like Alyssa Milano, or say who's the boss hot? She was into all that stuff. Ouija boards, all that stuff. And so I used to be an attractive guy. You can't judge that by now, but I used to be. So somehow for her 17th birthday party, I ended up being the only male boy, whatever, invited to the party. And so it's at the pool party. At that time, it was the nicest hotel in Paducah. It don't even exist anymore. So we go there, and it's just me and 6 goth. That term wasn't around in 1990, but 6 hot goth teenagers. So I was whatever. So we did the Ouija board. We played a game, 13 ladders and 13 doors. So so I've done all that stuff. But so next question. How do you describe your investigation style? Do you consider yourself like a scientific investigator, an old school investigator? What's your investigation style?
Yeah, I would say I'm a little bit more free range. Like I'm not psychic, but I'm definitely sensitive, and I kind of just go where I feel there will be activity. That's kind of what I like to do. I don't like it to be regimented, where it's like, okay, we're going to this room, then this room, then this room, because ghosts don't work like that. They move around wherever they want, and so for me, I like to go kind of where the activity takes me, or wherever, hey, this room has like a really odd feeling, so let's go in there. So for me, it's a little bit more free range and freestyle, just whatever works best in the moment, whether that's trying an experiment or whether it's, just feeling out the location to see what happens. That's, for me, it's kind of in the moment and seeing what works best for each location.
Well, you said that you're not clairvoyant, but you're sensitive, whatever. Yeah, I'm laughing at Paranormal Theory because they're there next week, and they said, hey, that's ours. But yeah, I think that whether you are or not, once you become a seasoned investigator, you develop that sixth sense, and I think it's very important to follow whatever you feel. I share it all the time with my team. Is trust your feelings. No matter what, even whether you're new or not. If you feel you should put a camera there, put a camera there. If you feel you should put a REM pod there, put a REM pod there. If you feel you should leave, you should probably hightail it out of there. Something's telling you that. So yeah, and I consider myself like a hybrid investigator. I use my clairvoyance and stuff, but I find it, especially if I'm doing a residential, it's a lot easier to go to the homeowner and be like, this is what I captured, than it is to be like, oh, this is what I feel is going on. And somebody earlier, I can't remember who, was saying that they stopped doing residentials like 8 months ago because it's not worth a lawsuit. The sad thing is my team, we actually carry insurance and legal representation, and that's just that's sad that it's came to this, and the paranormal fields came to that. And and here's the last question, because believe it or not, we're actually over time, but I'm going to ask the question anyway. So this is a question that we usually get into. How do you feel? What do you feel the positive or negatives of the para pop culture are?
Yeah,
do you think it's affect?
Yeah, so I would say that the positives are just that it's more widely accepted by people. Just in media, I went to Catholic school when I was younger, and the kids who thought it was really weird that I was ghost hunting when I was younger, when I was in high school, were the same ones asking me to take them on an impromptu ghost tour. So I would say the pop culture media has really allowed people to open their minds and have an interest where they didn't before. And negatives, when there's more things on the internet, people have a harder time believing it's real.
You got your Kool-Aid, Rob?
Yeah, we've got a whole shipment of Kool-Aid coming in. Hi, Sophia. I'm not here to step all over your show. What did you want me
yes.
to do?
Hold on, I'll get to you in just a minute. Stay in your corner. So yeah, I mean, so yeah, I pretty well agree with everything you just said. So like I said earlier, being growing up in the heart of the Bible Belt, I always got that you worship the devil. Then once we got ghost hunters and ghost adventurers and ghost brothers and whatever, now I get, oh, you mean you're like Taps or you're a devil worshiper. So, but at least it opens the conversation this much. So, yeah, so Rob, tell us about what we need to get tickets for the event. That's what you're here for, sir.
All right. But somebody threw out, it's coming. And Sophia, you might like this. It's a documentary. We linked up with this guy, Shannon Alexander, who, and he's not a paranormal guy, which is what I loved about it. But he originally started out with a documentary about sleep paralysis and ended up linking up with this family. See, this is right. You don't have to worship the devil. You just become a cult leader. It's real easy. Just be in the paranormal. Apparently, everybody has something to say. But it's a documentary about this family in Brooklyn that the mom has been haunted for quite some time, and it's moved along with her and her kids now. She has 5 kids, and Ashley's a real badass. But what they did was went in to film, and they caught some pretty amazing things. For me, the paranormal's as much about the living as the dead in many cases. And in this movie, I think you'll see that. So it's really cool. So for anybody on the side that is looking for something to do on September 20th, I want to say, we're going to do the first U.S. screening with Get Haunted, and Sarah and I will be at the family's location, which makes me a little nervous. And we're going to do a live Q&A afterwards. I watched I got to watch the movie, and I had so many questions afterwards. Really cool movie. It might be a little polarizing for some people because they're not paranormal people, right? And they do things and they're experimenting and trying to make contact. But what Shannon captured, and there's not a lot, but it's like any other paranormal thing. I had to ask him the day after watching this movie. I was like, dude, before I put my name on this, is this real? Is this real? And he's like, yeah. And I believe him. And you can tell by the footage, and he's offered up the footage and the family's reactions to some of these things. It's legit. So as much as it is about the paranormal, it's about the family. And Sophia, listening to you talk, it kind of led to some of my questions to you, right? What I've noticed with people is people that are more open to it, and it's not a big, that doesn't exist, tend to have more experiences, especially at a younger age. So yeah, it's cool listening to you talk, but it's why I was curious. Yeah. With your dad and your mom and you starting out at such a young age, I'm seeing similar things here in this movie. So for Damien to bring it up, Damien's our man in Scotland who watches every show. Thank you, Damien. But that's happening next week, and it'll help the family. It helps get this movie launched in the U.S. So if y'all have nothing,
is it going to be a movie soon? Or
yeah, So it was released last year, actually, at Hot Docs in Canada, and they're trying to bring it here to the U.S. And you guys know how it is with anything; it's hard, right? So they reached out to us and a couple other people to help with the U.S. screenings. But more importantly, what they learned after the documentary release in Canada at Hot Docs, people had so many questions, right? Like Sophia, wherever you go, people have a million questions for you. Kent, a million questions for you and your experiences. And the way he filmed the documentary to me is cool because you can tell he's not a paranormal guy, right? Like, I'm like, why the hell didn't he just go back and show that, right? Like, because you'll see things moving in this house. It's insane. It's really cool.
And it's $12 a ticket, right? Is that right?
$14.99. So that gives
I
you
got my ticket, but I couldn't remember.
thank
I'm
you.
still
No,
just
it gives you the
enrolled.
live stream and it gives you the live Q&A afterwards. And they're going to come with us. They're coming to the Warren Paracon. They're going to come hang out with us on the 28th. And
oh boy, I'm going to meet them.
Yeah, you'll get to meet them, Chris. And then they'll be with us on
You
the.
have one of these events without me. My feelings are hurt.
Well, get your ass up here. Then they'll be with us.
In 2025, I'm done planning on several. I'm going to be more active. I'm too busy down here having my own Paracon.
Well, get up here. And then they'll be with us at the soiree, at the Supernatural soiree on October 26th. They're going to be on the ship. Sophia, you're more than welcome to join us if you can make it.
Thank you.
So that's that. So is that what you wanted me on for, Kent?
That's what I wanted you for. Thank you, cult leader. Can I get my Get Hunted tattoo on my face?
You're gonna have to start like preparing for this cult leader stuff. Sophia, we have a couple haters here and there, and they call us a cult. So
a couple haters, yeah.
And
well, that's okay. Yeah, I had one today tell me that we all had to get tattoos.
Me, I have a lot of passion for Get Haunted.
You had someone seriously tell you that you had to be branded? Because I've heard.
Yeah, we'll discuss that not on my podcast. We'll discuss that after I get off. Okay.
All right.
All right. Anyway, thanks, Rob. Thank you for joining us. Sophia, it was a pleasure having you as a guest. Tell everybody how to get a hold of you if they need to get a hold of you or whatever, and what you got going on here in the future.
Yeah. So first off, it's nice to meet you, Rob. Yeah, my radio show is called The Ghost Host on liveparanormal.com. You can listen to it every Saturday from 12 to 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 8 p.m. GMT. There's archive shows on Blog Talk Radio, iTunes Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, pretty much anywhere you can find podcasts. There's some archive shows also that were filmed on youtube.com, The Ghost Host Sophia Temperilli. You can follow the show on Twitter at The Ghost Host Show. You can follow me at Sophia Temperilli. You can also follow me on Instagram at Sophia Temperilli. I was recently featured in Ghosted magazine. I believe it was their third issue, the Penhurst issue. So you can check that out on ghostedmagazine.com. I was also recently in Women on the Fringe, Groundbreaking Women in the Paranormal. So you can check that out on Amazon and read my life story. Check out my show tomorrow with Zach Wenzel, and I will also be at the OC Paracon in Orange County on October 12th, so you can listen to the panel I will be a part of there. And yeah, that's pretty much it. You can find me there, but thank you guys so much for having me on today.
Thank you for being on. Oh, I got too many buttons over here. There we go.